Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
But here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. Hey, I'm your host Scott Alexander and it's all Saints right now. Hey, Saints training camp is 2 weeks now in the books and the team is already about to play their first preseason game. Can you believe this? They play this Thursday night at Jacksonville, one of the AFC favorites to go to the Super Bowl along with New England and Pittsburgh. But let's talk about camp real quick because Marcus Williams, how about this safety from Utah? His second year, he is the unquestioned star of camp. Man, he is making plays and picks nearly every single day, almost on every play it seems like, including this Sunday night. He was at Ullman Stadium, you know, that new tradition where they go to Tulane. Well, he took a Drew Brees pass 108 yards. You see the interception there. You see Dennis Allen running with him all the way back to the end zone. The entire team ran back. He took it 108 for the pick six. It was truly amazing. Drew Brees seems to be getting picked by him every single day. Hey, but last week the star was Traquan Smith. And he was turning heads in camp, and he still looked great. But for both weeks in camp, I got to tell you this, wide receiver converted to tight end, Dan Arnold, has easily, and I mean easily, been the most surprising player. He's literally catching everything thrown his way. And, you know, he was in camp last year. You might remember he was number 25 in camp last year. He did really well, got practice squad, he was injured reserve, and he is a guy from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. And I'm telling you what, his chances are making the team look better and better. Hey, speaking of that Ullman Stadium, the Saints, that really nice tradition they have going now where they have a big practice and a scrimmage. They've been doing it every year for a while now at Tulane. I love it. It's one of the best things. The fans can get into it. This year, well, it was just this past Sunday, and the defense dominated with several INTs in the scrimmage. Hey, they had a couple pick sixes. P.J. Williams had one. You saw Marcus Williams as well. But it's really a nice night of interaction with the 9,000 fans that show up. It's always a good time. Look forward to doing that next year. Hey, the Saints division, though, it looks to be the toughest of the 8 in the NFL, with arch rival the Atlanta Falcons looking very tough. Carolina is right there with the Saints and Atlanta. It's going to be very tough to go and win that division again. You have defending Super Bowl champion Eagles. They're all also in the NFC. They're going to be tough again. Expect a resurgence from the Dallas Cowboys. And hey, but the Rams, they're all expected to continue to surge. They got a lot of new players. And don't forget the NFC North with Minnesota, who beat the Saints in the playoffs, and Green Bay with Rodgers back. All these teams are expected to do well, but the NFC is absolutely loaded. Hey, last week we talked about the Baseball Hall of Fame inductees. Well, this Saturday night, the Pro Football Hall of Famers got it done. And you had 7 former great players, and you had GM Bobby Beathard. He was with the Redskins and the Chargers, but 2 old-time Packers. Hey, you had Jerry Kramer, offensive lineman, Houston Oilers linebacker Robert Brazile, but the next 5, they're all household names. Wide receiver Randy Moss, probably the most talented wide receiver in the history of the NFL, with all apologies to the best wide receiver, Jerry Rice. Randy Moss did his thing with the Vikings, and he had an unbelievable year with Tom Brady in New England. Fantastic player, well-deserved. Couple of great linebackers. Ray Lewis, a Super Bowl champion with the Baltimore Ravens, played his entire career there. 13-time Pro Bowler. Are you kidding me? 7 times first-team All-Pro. Fantastic talent, but there was always a debate. Do you like Ray Lewis or do you like Brian Urlacher better? Urlacher was a force of nature in the middle for the Chicago Bears in that long line of middle linebacker tradition. Dick Buckish, you had obviously Mike Singletary, and Urlacher was just as good. His teams may have not been as good as Ray Lewis's, though. Hey, Brian Dawkins, a powerful leader with the Philadelphia Eagles. He gave a great speech, 9-time Pro Bowler, one of the best safeties in NFL history. And then there's the case of Terrell Owens. He was not in Canton with the rest of the team, with the rest of the players, I should say. He was a little miffed that he didn't get in on his first ballot. He did it in Chattanooga. He shed some tears, and he was a phenomenal receiver. I hate to see this take away. Let's go on to baseball, though. Has anyone noticed what the Oakland A's are doing? This is tremendous. From mid-April to mid-June, these A's were the most consistent team in baseball. Consistently mediocre, that is. Hey, never more than 2 games up from 500 or 2 games down, but something happened to them on June 16th when they were 34-36. And since that point, they are 33-10. They'd be in the playoffs today. They went from a 2% chance to make the playoffs to 65 right now. It's incredible, especially considering there's no player on this team batting over 271, and there's no pitcher with more than 10 wins. Amazing. Hey, let's go to baby cakes. This team's won 3 in a row. From the Albuquerque Isotopes, I love that name, on the road over there, and they won them. But how about J.B. Ishaq? He was the PCL Player of the Week, that's Pacific Coast League. 11-16 from the plate, 688 batting average, 734 on-base percentage, home run, couple doubles, 4 RBIs, 4 runs. Congratulations. And here's Foster Moreau, his incredible journey to the number 18. This guy went to Jesuit. He had no scholarship offer solid from LSU. He looked like he was going to Tulane, but there was a linebacker that LSU was waiting on signing day that ended up picking Mississippi State. And so Foster Moreau got a chance to go to LSU, and boy, has he proven Les Miles right. He has done some fantastic things, and now he is rewarded with that number 18, that famed number that started in 2001 with Matt Mauck. Matt Mauck was the first one to have it. Then it was Jason Hester for 4 years. Terrence McGee had it, as well as Tre'Davious White and others. Congratulations to Foster Moreau. Hey, we have a great show for you today. I have Saints fullback Zach Line. I have Sharief Ishaq talking all about the Saints in their camp, and then I have a story redemption with Todd Juluke. Stay tuned. Primetime Sports is coming up next. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. I cannot wait for this show. We're going to have a lot of fun. Sharief Ishaq is going to talk about his observations from 2 weeks of training camp, and I have a great story of redemption later in the show. First time ever in 140 episodes that I have talked about drug recovery, but we have a great former athlete from the city of New Orleans who has come a long way, and stay tuned for that. But right now, it's special. You know I love when I have Saints players. We've had a bunch of them on in the past, a lot of formers and even current ones. Right now we have the only fullback, the only true fullback on the Saints 100-man roster, and he's sitting right here. His name is Zach Line. He went to SMU, and you might be surprised that this fullback had almost 5,000 total yards from scrimmage as an SMU Mustang, and he gets all the way there from Oxford. Not Oxford, Mississippi, which we're familiar with, where Ole Miss is. Oxford, Michigan. And he went all the way down to SMU. He was a Minnesota Viking for a bit, and now he is a New Orleans Saint, and he loves to score touchdowns, which many fullbacks don't get the opportunity to do. But welcome to the show, Zach. How you doing?
Thank you so much. Thanks for the introduction.
Zach Line. Man, I saw you at the Rouses last year after a Falcons game. You had a great game. It was a great win. It happened to be Christmas Eve, and I'm sitting there talking to the Redhead Tsunami, and I said, man, I think that is the Saints fullback over there. Because, with helmets, it's not like everybody's Drew Brees and recognizable. And so she says, you think so? And I said, so I just threw out, Zach, just threw it out and wasn't looking in your direction. But I saw you move your head. So I said, so we ended up chatting that day.
Yep. Yeah, I think we were both in the same boat of getting our last minute, man, I hope Rouse's is open supplies. But,
exactly. Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Christmas Eve. We probably should have had it done. Family's in town.
Right.
No, I was glad we made the connection.
And you made the run from the locker room over there. It's kind of funny thinking of a pro athlete. Hey, honey, we still got some stuff to do.
Right.
Usually you think of somebody getting that stuff for you, but I love it.
Right.
Talk about your time real quick with the Saints, because you came from the Vikings. You had some success over there. How did you get down to New Orleans? I think a lot of people down here would be interested in that story.
I was with the Vikings for 4 years.
Yeah.
I loved my time up. Loved my time up there. Made some good friendships. We won a lot of football games, and then I ended up having hip surgery following my 4th year when I was going to free agency, so they just kind of went separate ways, and I hit free agency, was training all off season, got back into great shape, probably feeling the best I've ever felt in my career since college, because like you said, I had a lot of yards rushing, but I also had a lot of hits on my body, and don't really think I ever had time to have a little downtime. So it was good to have that little off season, and then the Saints picked me up, and
let's go back to those glory days, because you went to SMU. I'm imagining you don't hear a lot about SMU up in Michigan. And I'm going to say this, if you were around in the early 80s, you would have heard everything, because they were always, for a few years there, ranked in the top 5. They had Eric Dickerson, one of the all-time leading rushers in NFL history. Craig James, everybody knows about the Pony Express, but the SMU wasn't quite the same when you went there. How did you end up in Dallas?
Well, I wasn't getting heavily recruited out of high school. It's funny because me and Mark were probably 20 minutes away from each other growing up. He went to Flint Southwestern, and I went to Oxford, Michigan. So
Mark
Ingram.
Oh, Ingram. Okay.
So I played running back and I played linebacker. Linebacker was my featured role, and every week I would have, I think I have a big game at running back, and I think I'm gonna get a picture in the Flint Journal or the Oakland Press, and there'd be Mark right on the front page.
Oh yeah. Ingram stealing it all.
You flip the page, and then there'd be me. But I'm like, man, one of these times I'm gonna beat him. But it was pretty cool because the Dream Team. Michigan Dream Team, Detroit Free Press. It was Mark at running back, me at linebacker, right next to each other, and so
that's pretty cool.
We ended up together here. I had to bring it up, and he says he remembers, so I'm gonna have to find that. That article.
You gotta find it. I wish I'd known. I would have found it for you. But SMU though, man, you were toting the rock a lot. I think this surprised a lot of people. You had 4,200 yards rushing. You had almost 700 more receiving. You got the ball a lot. Talk about that time as a running back and getting to tote the rock quite a bit.
Yeah, well, when I came in as a linebacker, the first day of spring ball, June Jones basically stopped me in the tunnel and said, "Hey, what do you think about running back?" I'm saying, "Man, any way I can see the field, I don't care." So went and changed my jersey, came back out, played running back, run and shoot offense.
Legendary run and shoot guy. I mean, June Jones is the architect. I mean, some of those great Falcons teams they had back in the early 90s, he was doing that. But yeah, what was it like in that offense?
I mean, for a running back, you get 6-man boxes every time.
Yes.
So you're getting on the safety every time. So if I'm weighing 220 pounds in college and I'm getting to a safety every time, my odds are pretty good.
Okay, you've now, I'm imagining, this is 6 years in the NFL.
6.
Who are some of those defensive guys that have just really impressed you in the NFL?
Oh, defensive guys.
None of them, huh? He's like, I got these guys.
I'm trying to think of some defensive guys. I mean, obviously you got guys on our team that are.
Well, who do you like on our team? Who like those tough ones that you just like in practice? You're like, man, I hope he doesn't hit me.
I always admire a shutdown corner because that's such an island.
Yes.
It's like one of those positions that I even as much as I like to be cocky and joke around in the locker room, I would never say I could do that job.
Oh yeah, no. Very few humans on earth can.
Maybe I could rush a pass every once in a while and get lucky, but no, I couldn't.
Do you ever wish you played linebacker anymore? I mean, just for fun to hit people again?
I feel like I basically do. I get to hang out with them so much when I'm running through the line. So
you're hanging out with them.
But yeah, I would say Lattimore is one of those guys, and then when I was in Minnesota, it was Xavier Rhodes.
Oh my goodness, he was good.
Great cornerback. So.
Well, now as a fullback, you got to be one of the rare guys in NFL history that led the way for 2 players that went to the Pro Bowl in the same year on the same team. That is a very rare feat. Obviously, we're talking about Mark Ingram, who you just mentioned, your former mate up there in Michigan, and of course, the last year's Rookie of the Year, Alvin Kamara. That had to be a source of pride for you, right? I mean, coming back home and saying, yeah, 2 guys in the Pro Bowl here.
Well, when I come back home, I never need to say anything because we just moved back to my hometown, and everybody will tell me.
Oh,
so it's pretty funny. But Mark and Kamara, I mean, those guys, everything that happens on the field happens in practice. Those guys work hard. That's what I like when, like Drew said the other day, he likes that his sons are able to come to practice because they see it doesn't just happen on game day; it happens in practice.
That was a great comment.
I love that.
I was there when he said it. Yeah.
I love how he did that. So.
Were you standing right there when he said it?
No, I watched the interview.
Oh, you watched the deal. I love it.
So I watched the interview.
All right.
You can always pick up something from Drew. He's the old wise man.
That's pretty interesting. What has Drew taught you as a player? I mean, like, what are some things that – because, I mean, he is a 39-year-old guy. People forget he has been here for 13 years, but he also had a pretty lengthy time, about 5 years or so in San Diego. So you have to learn some things from Drew Brees, right?
Yeah, if you don't, I don't know what you're doing, but it's his routine, his practice habits, his demeanor towards the game, and just his attitude towards what he's doing. It's always with intention, So every warm up he's doing, I can check the clock from in the training room. I know he's going to come in and get his shoulders stretched at a certain time. So he's just sticking to his routine, which as you get older, I mean, myself included, I've found ways this is how my body's going to be the best on game day. And he does a great job of that.
I love you said yesterday, you said, hey, man, I'm a simple man. I'm a family man. I love my family. We'll talk about your family. I mean, you got your bride down here. You have a baby. I guess it's not a baby anymore. Maybe it's more of a toddler. But talk about them.
Yeah, so I got my wife is down here, Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mackenzie.
We met at SMU.
Right.
She's from Scottsdale, so somehow I got her to
Arizona.
Somehow I got her to move to Michigan.
Right.
Close to my family, which has been awesome. We got 2 kids right now. We have Charlie, Charlotte, and Blake. So Blake's 2 and Charlie's 1.
Oh, so Charlotte is Charlie.
Charlotte is Charlie.
I like that. Okay.
And then we have 1 due in November.
So you're about to have 3rd.
Yep.
Congratulations.
3rd girl.
3rd girl. What is it like being in New Orleans, though, for you? Because it's obviously a lot different than Michigan, and it's even a lot different than obviously Minnesota, Minneapolis. So What has this been like besides hot?
It's been hot for sure, but last year was the most fun I've had. Just not even on the field, but it was my wife, and just so many good restaurants around here. People are so nice. We had a blast.
Well, I know I rated your Twitter a little bit. You see some of these shots, and obviously you've been to more than one Garth Brooks concert because I see you at a couple at least, and you may have been to more. So you're a fan of Garth Brooks?
Huge fan. So I grew up, my dad was, how it is. My dad was a huge fan of Garth Brooks, so I just grew up loving Garth Brooks.
And there's your dad there. I love it. Hey, by the way, were you also a fan of his alter ego, Chris Gaines? Are you familiar? Are you too young to remember this, Chris Gaines? See, because this was a big deal back. The people that are under 30 don't know what I'm talking about, but he came out as this, and nobody really knew who it was because he obviously looks a lot thinner, looks a little bit more like Chris Angel. Yeah. But what was this about? And
I don't know. I remember my parents freaking out over this, and I was always like, "Oh, Garth Brooks is gone."
He's gone.
So then he came back finally. He's doing his Vegas tour, and everybody jumped back on to Garth Brooks. But
it was kind of weird, wasn't it?
I don't think I've ever heard a Chris Gaines song.
But they were playing Chris Gaines a little bit on the radio, and no one really knew who this dude was. And all of a sudden, it was like the big reveal. It's really Garth Brooks. And it was kind of freaky. I think it was like 1999 or 2000, so you had to be very young. But by the way, your parents are a big influence on your life. They just seem so young when I look at this. Is your mom and dad, correct?
Yep.
They look great and they look young. I mean,
they are young, and they're definitely my biggest fans. Role models for me and my wife too. So it's good to have good people around you, and it's easy when they're your parents,
Hey, I love this meme that I saw on your Facebook about fullbacks. I think it's great because everybody does talk about, fullbacks with the spread offenses. I love this meme so much. Explain it.
Every year you hear it's a dying breed, and every year it's not going anywhere. It's two teams brought a fullback back this year. You got Arizona and Oakland. They both have a fullback back. So,
right.
When it comes down to it, teams are starting to carry a fullback more. I feel like it's an ebb and flow. Linebackers get bigger, you go to a spread. Linebackers start getting smaller because they're trying to cover the spread, they bring a fullback back.
Right.
There's never going to be a real answer. It's just going to be constantly adjusting to what people are doing.
I have to ask you because the expectations are so different from last year when you were first year here in New Orleans and now, because obviously last year 3 7-9 seasons. The Saints haven't had double-digit losses since the 90s. 99, I think, was the last year. So they've either been mediocre at 7-9 or 8-8, or very, very good. They had the 13-3 type seasons, 11-5 and Super Bowl stuff. But last year, people were kind of down. And it's like, okay, it's now or never, because 3 straight losing seasons after having such success wasn't cutting it. But now it is night and day the way people are talking about the New Orleans Saints. What's it been like for you as a player?
Yeah, I wasn't here for any of the losing seasons. I was only here for the winning seasons, and that dome is the craziest place I've ever played in a good way.
Right.
I've ever played. I've never played in an environment so loud and energetic. So that was a lot of fun. New Orleans is a city you can feel the buzz in the air when things are good, and even when times are bad. say, you know, the end of the season last year, the community was behind the team 100%, which is really cool to see.
If you can explain what it's like when it's super loud down there, because I know they're not the only stadium that's loud, but it is a little unique. It's completely closed in. And I know Minnesota, where you played, is loud. And I know at night that Monday night game was super loud. But explain, if you can put it in words, what it sounds like when that crowd is completely revved up.
I don't know. I have goosebumps. I mean, it's one of those sounds. It's just almost silence that it's so loud. You know, you can't hear anything. You just see mouths moving, but you can't hear any words. But it helps us out a lot. I mean, look at the Carolina game. Look at the Atlanta game.
I mean, Carolina's a very good football team, and the Saints beat them 3 times. That is so hard to do. Obviously, a split with the Falcons. Have you got a feel for these rivalries yet? Because I know the Falcons, since I was a child, this has been our one team of any sport that there is a strong dislike. I never use the word hate for anything. I know a lot of Saints fans will, but it's a strong dislike. Here you go. Finally, a beer can that won't leave any rings on your table, because we love to give them a hard time. They're 0-2 in Super Bowls, and the Saints, well, we've got a ring finally in 2009. But do you feel that rivalry yet?
I do, and I knew about it just because my buddy will be mad if I don't bring him up. Joey Fontana.
Bring him up, yeah.
He's from Mandeville. He's born and raised Saints fan. So
how'd you get to know him?
I went to college with him, so he was my guard. He was my guard in college.
Oh, nice.
So
and he's here?
So he lives here, so I see him all the time now.
That's very cool.
But from the jump, when I was a free agent, he's like, if you go to Atlanta, I'll get your number, but I can't have Atlanta on it.
Yeah, no. That's a strong thing here. I mean, you're gonna ingratiate yourself to Saints fans when you say stuff like that, because I've heard just from the veterans always passing it down to the young guys. I'm talking about from the 70s on to now. It is that one game. No matter what the records are, both teams, they fight tooth and nail for that win, and it always seems to be a close game.
Well, here's the difference. When I was in Minnesota, we had the Packers.
Yeah, you did.
But Zimmer was new to the Vikings, so he didn't have that hate yet, I feel like, when he first came in, or didn't know. But you could feel it in the community, but you couldn't feel it in your head coach. When I came here, I could feel it in Coach Payton with the Falcons.
Well, he owned them early on. I mean, literally, he was like 12-2 or 12-3 against them for a while. Now it's been kind of even back and forth. But they're a good team. Saints are good, and it's always fun when both teams in a rivalry are good. And I can't tell you how great it was to have you on, Zach. Congratulations on your success. Hey, we got to get you uptown. I know you live close to the facility, which is smart. You get there to practice early. But this is uptown, right off St. Charles. It's between Carrollton and Maple. Just Google up Shays de la Shays. It's on there. Bring your wife for a nice meal. You got to get a babysitter for Blake and Charlie.
Easy.
And good luck with the new baby. And this, you'll never put another type workout shirt, I promise you. I have Under Armour. I used to, at least. I used to have a lot of Nike Dry Fit. All that stuff I throw rocks at now. I'm telling you right now, this is Task Performance. Feel it's a New Orleans company. 100% natural. None of that false fiber that the other stuff has. Sean Payton wears it all the time. Drew Brees wears it all the time. You see it. If you see that Task up there, they always seem to wear it. Mickey Loomis, they both wore it to the press conference. But Zach, I do appreciate you once again. That is Zach Line. Check him out. He's going to probably play this Thursday. I know they don't play a lot of the regulars, but I know they're going to play as many guys as they can to get them some action. The Saints play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Speaking of that, we're going to have Sharief Ishaq with WDSU. He's going to talk about it. Hey, don't forget next week, I've got the LSU basketball coach, Will Wade. I've got the 1962 Heisman Trophy runner-up. That's right, Jerry Stovall is going to be here, one of the LSU legends, and defensive back Rod Teamer from the Tulane Green Wave, because college football is starting as well. I know we've been heavy on the Saints the last couple of weeks, but we're going to get into the college level as well. Hey, coming up next, Sharief, and then we're going to have the story of Todd Juluke after that, right here on Primetime Sports.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll.
Hey, welcome back to Prime Time Sports. That was enjoyable with Zach Line, the SMU pony, the Mustang guy. Now he's a Saint, former Viking as well. But now, hey, we're going to get to the nuts and bolts of what's going on with the Saints, a guy that's been to every single training camp practice, except maybe one, who knows. But his name is Sharief Ishaq. We had him on right before the Pelicans went into the playoffs. We talked about that, but now it's football season. As you know, the first preseason game is Thursday night. Can you believe it? We haven't even had 2 full weeks of training camp. They do it every year, but it still shocks me. But here he is. He's obviously from WDSU at Channel 6. Sharief Ishaq.
What's up? How you
Welcome
doing, Scotty?
back to the show.
Thank you.
You got your Don Johnson look. You got
Miami Vice look, man.
Miami Vice, little
shadow.
Yeah, a little shadow. Looking good, dude.
The scruff, the sexy scruff.
I like the shirt off the coat. It brings it out a little bit. Look at him. He's all right.
Yeah, I'm looking at myself. Woo.
So how you doing, man?
Good.
Are you having fun still doing what you're doing?
Always having fun. Sports, man. How could you not have fun covering sports?
Well, you guys, I seem to say this, but it's impressed me because you're one of the last of the Mohicans with a 2-man crew in sports. I mean, literally, we have a station here that has 4. Most stations across the country have 3. How do y'all manage to do it with just 2 sports guys, you and Fletcher Mackel?
We just work, man. Just grind. I mean, especially during football season, you might get 1 day off a week. Sometimes you don't get any days off a week. Just gotta keep your head down. You know, the cliche. Just gotta keep on, doing the job, or it just doesn't get done if we don't work as a team. And it's almost like a sport, man. You got to work like a team when it's 2 of you.
That's what I was gonna. You stole the words out of my mouth. The team part, especially when you're 2, has to be so important because if one of you guys has a down day, we all get sick one time. Yeah. No matter what's going on, the other guy's got to come in, right?
It's happened before. It happened, I think, last year when he got sick for the very first time. He says, and I had to cover him for him for a week, but. It happens, man. It's life. Right. You get sick,
Sure.
It happens, but it is what it is, as Sean Pate would say, man. We just keep on grinding, and we try to put out the best stuff as possible, whether it's on social media or on TV or on our online.
Sharief, this is my 7th training camp since coming back home to New Orleans. I know you've been down here. I know you're a New Orleans native, but I know you've been down about 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah. And I know you were in Baton Rouge covering it before that. I think Alexandria maybe before that?
Before that, yes.
I just remember that.
Yeah.
So you've been covering the Saints for a while. Yeah. My point being is, does this feel any different than, say, the last 7 or plus years?
It almost feels like a combination of 2009 and 2011 with all the weapons they have, some of the young pieces, the young veterans, and a little bit of the crafty older guys like, Ben and Drew. It feels like that. It feels like they can make a deep run with this team.
And the caution I gave people in the open is that the NFC is so deep. It's so funny because they are really deep. Like the AFC, I can see 3 teams really making it, so maybe 4. You throw a wild card like San Diego in. But my point is, the NFC, it would not be shocking whatsoever if 7 teams made the Super Bowl and maybe even an 8th. If Seattle just somehow played well. But my point is that you got the Dallas Cowboys. You got, obviously, everybody thinks they're terrible. But, hey, they were 13-3 2 years ago. We all know the Eagles. We know the Vikings. And the Packers will be back with Rodgers. You got the Rams over there. And you got the 3 teams in the NFC South. So it's really kind of wide open.
The NFC South is brutal, man. It is brutal. I think that's the toughest division by far. It's not even close.
Yes. At least today it is, for sure. Things change during the season. We know that. But today it is.
3 teams make the playoffs last season. Falcons and Saints were very close to, possibly, they could have probably met. And then
they both went to the...
Yeah, they could have possibly met in the NFC Championship
divisional
game.
Playoff round, right.
They're literally each probably a play away from making it.
Right. They were down, both teams were 1 possession away. Yeah. 1 play away, not even possession away.
We could have had a 3rd game in the Superdome.
That would have been crazy, because if Julio doesn't trip in the end zone, they're in.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, we won't even have to bring up what happens to the Saints. But here's the schedule this year. For once, Sharief, it just seems like the schedule makers gave the Saints a little bit of a favor to start the season, because it hasn't been that way since Bounty Gate.
Yeah, well, you look at it, first 2 games of the year at home, winnable games. You hate to say winnable, but, because teams
anything happens.
Yeah, because teams can be better. Well, Jameis Winston isn't going to play week 1, week 2, week 3, but they get them the first week.
Although their quarterback scares me more than Jameis, actually.
Well, yeah, because
Fitzpatrick
is good. And then week 2, you get the Cleveland Browns. You don't know who's going to be playing quarterback. Do they put Baker in? Do they give him his shot? Or is it Tyrod Taylor? Right, I believe it's Tyrod Taylor. But
they're 1-31 the last 2 years. If they lose that one, then let's just write off all the
if they lose any of the first 2 games, that's
particularly the second one.
Any one of those first 2 games, you're thinking, oh, man, this may not turn out well, because weeks 3 and 4 are very important going on the road to Atlanta. As we know, the Saints have a hard time in Atlanta. And New York, I think they're going to be a much better team.
New York's going to be much better. I put them as a dark horse too. I mean, they got their best player back, OBJ,
sure.
and all of a sudden that makes Eli Manning better. He looked terrible because he didn't have any of his receivers, and then all of a sudden you got the best back in the draft, and maybe one of the best to come out since Ezekiel Elliott. Who knows? This guy could be great in Saquon Barkley. But let's move forward with the Saints. What has been the most pleasant surprise for you in the 2 weeks of camp so far?
I like Marcus Williams.
Yeah.
I like what he's done.
Right.
I feel like every single practice I've been to, it's an interception, a big hit, deflection, a nice tackle. Marcus Williams is exactly what they drafted, what they thought was going to be a soon-to-be
I don't want to do that
all-pro.
voice for myself, but before the training camp started, I was asked, what is the wildest prediction you have? And now it's not wild at all. It's not even far-fetched. But back then, after Marcus Williams coming off his play, I said Marcus Williams will be a Pro Bowler this year. 2 weeks ago, before one single practice, now he looks like Now he looks like the best player in the Saints secondary at the moment. We know Marshawn Lattimore is fantastic, but Nick Underhill also said we were on the same show and we were looking at each other. I can't believe you just said that because that was my prediction. But he is definitely as advertised as a second-round pick.
It has nothing to do with the play. I just thought he was very talented last year when they got him out of Utah. He was a ball hawk. He's smart. You know, Sean Payton likes to say a lot of guys are smart, athletic, quick to the ball, but truly he is all three of those things. And I tell you what, he's going to have a special season. I feel like he's going to have a real special season. Monday's practice, really good, picked off Breeze. Sunday, Tulane had an interception. I feel like every practice.
He picked him off on Saturday as well.
Yeah,
He's picked him off 3 straight days, and he makes picks single every day. And I knew what a ball hawk he was at Utah because I covered them twice. I was in coaches' meetings, and they would always bring Marcus Williams in the meetings, and I was like, wow, this guy's got a great head on his shoulder, even back in college. And then you see him on the field, the range. The twitch muscles were just there. He had the whole thing. So now Saints fans are truly seeing what he can become. Absolutely,
and that's exactly what they need. They need a couple guys back there that can help out Marshawn, King Crowley, Patrick Robinson. They need some safeties with speed and athleticism, and that's exactly what they got with him alongside of Kirk Coleman.
And when he was drafted, I made this bold prediction, and it's still not there by a long shot, but I said he will become the best Saints safety in Saints history. There's Tommy Myers, in my opinion. You're too young to remember him. He was fantastic in the 70s. Sammy Knight, the younger people remember him. But there's not. And then the same thing with Lattimore. I think he's going to be the best cornerback, and I said that at the draft. So these two guys solidified a position that was historically bad for about 3 or 4 years, and now it's become really a position of strength when you look at the overall depth they have at both cornerback and safety.
I'm really impressed with what Marshawn Lattimore did in Monday's practice in one-on-one drills versus Ted Ginn. You know how hard it is for cornerbacks to stop a receiver in one-on-one drills?
It's hard.
It's almost impossible to the point where you're like, man, I give up. He was one-on-one with Ted Ginn in 2 plays. I watched him. Drew Brees couldn't even throw the ball.
It's like the penalty kick in soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
really
you expect them to make it.
Good comparison.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so the one-on-one drill, you're set up to fail as a cornerback.
I watched it and I was like, Drew Brees couldn't even throw the ball. He didn't even let a throw go. I was like, that's really good defense right there, especially in one-on-one drills where, you know, it's hard to stop a receiver.
It's funny because I hear people talk about, oh, this must be some people, not people that knowledge. Like, oh my God, Brees keeps getting picked off. This must be, and I'm like, no, it's a great sign. That means the defense is great. We know the Saints offense is top 5 every single year, right?
There's no worries in the offense. A lot of people are like, oh my God, that's it. Drew's done. He's throwing all these interceptions in practice. You know what? He's thrown a lot of interceptions in training camp practices over the years. It doesn't seem like it's affected him at all. You know, if he has a season like he did last season, awesome. The Saints are going to really go deep. He doesn't need to throw for 5,000 yards. He doesn't need to launch the ball a bunch down the field. He'll have his chances if they can run the ball like they did last season.
4,200 yards is just fine. People are like, oh, he's on the downside of his career because he's not in 5,000. No, he's got a guy, by the way, I want to talk about with you, Alvin Kamara, because you have spent a lot of time with him recently. I saw your thing last night on your news station, and I thought it was great. Talk about this second-year player and how dynamic he is on and off the field.
He has such a great personality. I can see why he's likable. People in the media like him. Fans love him. Just open. He's an open guy.
So smart, too.
Smart. Really smart.
Very smart.
Always laughing, always smiling. Guy who always seems to be having fun regardless of what's going on. Off the field, in the Drake video, gets into that, at the ESPYs, on GQ, cover of GQ.
Yeah, we have a lot of shots of that GQ stuff. Yeah.
I know, man. I wish I was as ripped as him, man. 22 years old, and look,
still 22.
Yeah, 20. I see 21 or 22, but it's awesome. It's awesome for him. Take advantage of your opportunities. You have a big rookie campaign over 1,500 yards of total offense, 13 touchdowns, a kickoff return. You take advantage of the opportunities you're given. And he said, yeah, you know what? I turn down some opportunities. If I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do stuff that I really love. And, no disrespect, he said, I thank the people that I turned down the opportunities to. But he knows he's got to handle that hype in a good way going into his second year. He says he'll be just fine. It's now football. He's tuned into football. No more off the field stuff. 81
catches as a rookie, a third-round pick. 81 receptions. He led the running backs in yards as a receiver, and he also, obviously, we know that almost 1,600 total yards. Not total. That doesn't even count the return yards because he's almost 2,000 when you count those. But when you're talking about yards from scrimmage and you're getting 1,600 from a guy that's really a part-timer, that's outstanding.
Yeah, and remember, he was averaging 12 touches a game. That's pretty solid to have.
Right. It's unbelievably
And by the way, he said, and he was asked a few times by Jeff Duncan, hey, can you handle more touches? He's smiling, and you know how he has that smile and laugh. He was like, yeah, I can take more touches. Don't worry. He's like, I can have more touches. So he's going to have to, handle that in the first 4 games.
7.7 yards per touch is the best in NFL history by any player as a running back. Just put that into a sentence. The best in NFL history for a running back, 6.1 yards per carry as a rookie, and then obviously the receiving yards as well.
I'm interested to see how he handles that in his second year. Where do those numbers go? You're going to have a little fall off. It's tough to be best in history every time you touch the ball,
right.
But it's just part of the game. It's just if he can, have a consistency there.
And that doesn't mean he's not a better player. If his numbers are a little different, you got more mouths to feed too with some more receivers here.
If he goes out and has a very good first 4 games without Mark Ingram, you know how crazy that's going to be for this offense?
He's projected in every fantasy draft in the first 10 picks. I picked him in the 13th round last year, and he was like the 4th Saints running back pick. Everybody's like, oh, that's a wasted pick. And I threw a dart at the wall. I didn't know. And it worked out very well.
Yeah.
But my point is this kid is dynamic. Now, when Mark Ingram comes back, talk about that combination and what they can provide this year compared to last year.
Here's the positive news, I guess, after being suspended for the first 4 games. Mark Ingram's going to be fresh for 12 games. He's going to be healthy,
Yeah.
He's going. I know he's shooting for Deuce McAllister's record there with 12 games.
Most yards rushed
for
Saints.
Yeah, he's going to have a shot. I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to come back on fire and ready to prove that, he still has some wheels.
What do you think the rotation with the receivers? The Saints a lot of times, they'll obviously always have 3 receivers out there. They're going to throw 4 out many times. What do you think? What mouths are going to get fed the most besides Mike Thomas, who we know is going to be one of the best in the league?
Traquan Smith. He's the guy on offense. We talk about Marcus Williams during training camp. Traquan Smith has pretty much caught every single pass.
Yeah.
He's wearing the number 10. He reminds me of a bigger version of Brandon Cooks, who also wore number 10. Goes inside, not scared to get hit, not scared to go for a ball.
I think he's better than Cooks was at this stage of his career.
I know. It's hard. I don't want to say that because it's only training camp, but you kind of get that gut feeling he could be and is better than him at this stage. But that was a
size
really
alone
good
helps, man. It's saying no knock on Cooks because he's a great receiver and does what he does, but there are limitations at his size, and I think the Saints saw that when they were able to get the first rounder. And I don't want to dog Cooks, but he was a bit of a powder. And that's not just the Rams game when that's famous because he didn't make a catch. He was pouting a lot. With us in the media saw it.
It's facts. It's not like you're making it up.
So you want guys. The locker room is so important in the NFL. The Saints of all teams know. They saw the division, with the Junior Gillette stuff and going on, and they have a really good vibe in this locker room.
That's been, from the media side of things, that's been the best part about it. Like last year and so far this year, the guys in the locker room very mature, respectable, and good players on top of it. They handle the media really well. That's what you want. It's a good look, especially whenever in terms of the fans and the public perception. You got to have those type of players. And I think Sean enjoys that. Nicky enjoys that.
Speaking of Sean, I had to bring this up because Sean is visibly relaxed. He's visibly confident. It's not snippy Sean. And I don't mean that. We've seen the next question. I'm not saying that means anything, but the fact is, he has a quiet confidence about it right now.
This is what happens whenever you get a winning team back, like last season. I keep saying last season a lot, but that's what happens, Scott. You get an 11-win team, you one play away from getting the NFC Championship game. It builds confidence and builds momentum a lot for him moving forward, knowing he has some good young pieces to work with now. There's not much stress. I'm sure there's a little stress in the coaching game for him, but He hasn't been snippy. He hasn't really been that loud during practice.
No. I mean, but the media is not short with him, and you can read into that whatever you want. It's just been pleasant to be around. But I got to bring up my guest that I just had, Zach Line. Hey, man, it's kind of cool when you can go back home and say, yeah, I was the fullback on the team that had 2 Pro Bowl running backs, and that hasn't happened in several years. I think it happened with the Cardinals many, many years ago. I think the last time you had 2 in the Pro Bowl together on the same team.
I think of Zach Line. Was it the Detroit game when he got the 4th down play and he pitched the ball off? It was like an option play.
Yes,
It may have been Detroit or another game. I just can't remember the exact game, but I was like, oh yeah, that was him who pitched the ball off. They gave it to him. He pitched it off to Kamara and he got the 1st down. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. He scored a touchdown or 2 last season.
About it.
Yeah, I think
he scored a lot of them at SMU. A whole lot of them.
You have to tell me his background. I was surprised when you told me he had over 5,000 yards at SMU. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was a player, and he still is. Hey, by the way, before I let you go, the front 7. Do you have any concerns about this defense up front?
Deep. They're deep. That's the one thing. The entire defense is deep, and it's been a while since you've been able to say.
It's been never since I've been here.
Just getting Marcus.
It's been never deep since I've been here. It's deep right now. You're right.
Very deep, and that's going to be a tough cut down for the coaches. But it's getting Marcus Davenport back into the flow. He's missed a few practices now, so I don't really think that's a big concern. He's a raw guy. He's big. He's going to probably create some havoc when he gets out there in the field, and he's at 100%, which is going to help Cam Jordan a lot. And I think Sheldon Rankins is also having a quiet, good training camp, and that's going to be big for that defensive line. But like I said, they are deep across that line.
Good timing on that. We have shots of Sheldon as you did. There's Cam Jordan. He is a superstar. It's
called TV, Scotty.
Hey, I know a guy. Yeah, we don't do any post-pro. No. This is all you get it right here. It's live. Basically live. So anyway, appreciate you, man.
Sure.
And thank you so much. Here is a Task Performance shirt. It's a medium.
You knew it. You knew my favorite size.
It's a medium, baby.
Going straight to the gym in it.
And you know where this place is. It's called Shays Delachey.
Sure. Yeah.
Right there on Maple Street.
Appreciate it, man.
Can't thank you enough.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks
man.
a lot.
Appreciate you. That is Sharief Ishaq. Also want to thank, we just had Zach Line, but coming up, we got a story of redemption, a story of a comeback, a story of a former great basketball player from the city of New Orleans. His name is Todd Juluke. He played at St. Aug. He went and played college basketball in Florida. He hit the mountaintop as a ball player. He hit the valley as low as you can go as a drug addict, and he is back on top working with Leon Cannizzaro. Got a pardon from Governor John Bell Edwards. He's going to tell you his story next, right here on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. I want to thank Sharief Ishaq. That was a whole lot of fun. And of course, Saints fullback Zach Line. But here we have a story of adversity overcome. We all have issues sometimes in our life, but I doubt that few of us have had to deal with what my next guest says. His name is Todd Juluke. I remember him as a basketball player at St. Aug. He's just a year or so older than me. And hey, listen, the Catholic League was very strong, as it still is, but it was fun playing against this man. He was a superstar at his game. Played in college in the state of Florida, and he had some troubles. He got into drugs, and then this is a story of redemption and overcoming them. We'll let him tell the story, but here he is, Todd Juluke.
Hey,
welcome.
Man, Scott, thank you.
A lot of people hear the name Juluke. They think of Jabbar Juluke because he's become a big name. That's your cousin.
Yes.
He was a running backs coach at LSU. Obviously, he is at University of Louisiana Raging Cajuns right now.
Yes.
Been all over the place. Louisiana Tech, Texas Tech. He's been on the high school level, but you're your own man.
I'm my own man. I got my own destiny and my own direction. And Jabbar has been a great part of my life since I started recovering.
Well, let's talk about the recovery, because I think there's a lot of people out there struggling with issues like this, and this is something I've never really had on my show, but when it was presented to me, I said I'd love to do this.
Right. I really appreciate that you had me on so I could share my experience, man. You know, I was okay at St. Aug in basketball, and in my opinion, because I played forward there. That was a number 4, so I played with my back to the basket.
Right on.
I did okay there, but when I got to college, I had to play point and shooting guard.
Yeah.
So now I see the game from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity back then when we were young. I don't know if you remember over at Booker T, they had Stephen O'Connor.
Sure, man.
And Leonard Pooler.
Uh-huh.
And they played with me in Miami at Florida Memorial
Okay,
University.
all right.
And just that type of intensity and competition really excelled in my game because I had to dribble the ball.
Sure, sure.
And I got better there. And my freshman year there, I didn't use drugs. I was in the gym. And the summer of my going into my sophomore year, I tried cocaine.
Was this down in Miami?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's probably pretty pure down there, I imagine.
Oh, yes, sir.
I mean,
it was in the 80s. It was
yeah.
I thought it was a beautiful
it's
thing.
it's the pipeline right there. So yeah.
And that really like overrode my logic because I never thought that just snorting powder would take me all the way down to these roads that I didn't want to see.
Well, give people an idea where the roads took you.
Well, the roads took me first. I was dealing it first.
Sure.
And I don't want to like glamorize it. I mean, I knew everybody, so and everybody who snorted, it was easy to get money.
Right.
And party at the same time.
Right.
And then it got me, sent me to jail. My first federal case, I went to jail for some ounces of cocaine.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Okay. And then after I was released, I still wanted to use.
Sure.
And I went back to smoking it and cooking it.
Different level, right?
Yeah, different level, and it was a different high, and it grabbed me, and it increased my compulsion to use and my obsession to use. And man, it took me to 3, 4, 5 times back to state prison. I was homeless here in the city of New Orleans. I was.
What years are we talking about now?
Like around 94, 95.
So just a dozen years after high school,
yeah,
right?
Man. Yeah. And I was just like lost. I was up and down St. Bernard Avenue, cracking, and I knew everybody, so people would give me plates while I was in my addiction. So, because I was walking everywhere. It was a shameful, embarrassing state. But at that point, I didn't care about being embarrassed. I wanted to use.
Right.
And it was a lot of youngsters coming up. At that time, I could remember a friend of mine, Glenn Amity, said, man, we got to get you off the street because them little boys will see you and you big guy, they might think you want to rob them and they'll kill you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
so I went through that process, in and out of prison, and my disease, it kept growing. Every time I got out, I wind up going back to use. You know what I'm saying? And it took me to places where, and I was walking, Scott, I was walking from the 6th Ward, 7th Ward to the 9th Ward, and I was shortstop in sales. I mean, it was a really gruesome existence.
When you look back, you're probably sick to your stomach.
Yeah, and I wasn't built for that because I had both my parents, and they guided me to St.
Aug's an excellent school. I mean,
structure, discipline,
right?
And I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to recover, because I could go back to that structure and regenerate myself as it relates to being positive and motivating. You know what I'm saying? So for me, the jails, the homeless shelters, the rehabs, I did all of those things. And I guess that was part of my journey, because now I know at every level what the dysfunctional thinking and what drug use entails.
What pulled you out of this?
Well, I met a lady by the name of Mikula Iverson. She was from Copenhagen, Denmark.
Okay.
And she's a jazz vocalist, and she has a African-American tour.
Right.
She's a tour guide, and she's Buddhist. Mm-hmm. And I seen her chanting. When we got together, I seen her chanting, and I wanted to find out more about the Buddhist practice. And when I started chanting, things started happening. That's how that, yeah. Things started happening, and we was together for 5 years. She called me one time. I met her at Harris Casino because I was working there as an EVS worker, and she had just lost her $100, and she was like, I'm not giving my money away. I'm hungry, and we talked, and we traded numbers, and one morning she called me because I worked overnight, and she asked me to bring breakfast, and I brought breakfast, and I stood there for the next 5 years. Wow. Beautiful story. And she turned my soul on with Buddhist practice. And from then on, I was chanting, and I knew I needed to be working. So I called the DA's office and asked, as a lady, I asked about expungement. That's where it was.
To clear your record, right?
Because
Let's get into that real quick.
I know I needed to be gainfully employed.
Sure.
With all the drug convictions I had, it was every employer frowned up every time I.
Well, you got this right there. Explain how you did this real quick, because that's Leon Canizaro's office. You're a member of the staff. He is the district attorney of New Orleans. Notoriously tough, but also fair.
Also fair, because when he was a judge, he sentenced me to 10 years.
Right.
So as the lady was explaining the process of expungement to me, I asked, could I speak to Mr. Canizaro? She said, well, how do you know him?
There he is right there.
I said, he sentenced me to 10 years. She was like, wow. She gave him my number. He called. He said, Mr. Juluke, I hear you're doing some great things with your life now. I said, the next right thing for the next right reason. And he said, well, I'm your biggest supporter. How could I help? I said, every time I fill out an application, employers frown up because of my criminal background history. He said, we could waive one, but you got to pay for the other charges, and that's $550 per charge.
Right.
I wasn't working.
No, I hear you.
So, he said, I'm going to look around and check, and that was on a Friday. So I went to his office Monday. He called me back Tuesday, said, a lady by the name of Andre Maddox is going to call you. She called, and I had an interview with her and her supervisor, Dr. Audrey Blackwood, and they'd let me do groups with adolescents and adults. And if anybody that's into drugs in New Orleans, they know about me and my family, and it was a shoo-in.
How did it get to the governor where he gave you a pardon or clemency on your record? Because this is where it gets to be a huge story in national.
Actually, I'm part of NOAPA. That's the New Orleans Addiction Professional Association.
Sure.
So this guy by the name of Paul Shane was doing a seminar on mass incarceration.
Right.
So after he'd finished, he had question and answer. I raised my hand. I'm in school. I got 5 or 6 convictions, and I know in social work and substance abuse you can't have felonies.
Right.
So after I shared, a lady by the name of Cindy Lanza walked up to me and shook my hand and said, how could I help? I'm a social worker. So from then on, we met. I told her I needed to get a clemency. So we shot the application to Bobby Jindal. I got a unanimous decision from the pardon board, but obviously he didn't look at it. So Governor John Bell Edwards was the clemency, the speaker for Southern in 2016.
Nice.
And Senator
He's a good man.
Senator Wesley Bishop was able to work it where I could work the graduation, and I shake the graduate's hand, and I get an opportunity, 5 minutes with the governor. So at the 5 minutes, I was able to express to the governor how we applied with Bobby Jindal's administration, and we didn't get nothing, and we resubmitting it with you. And it was
the opiate addiction issue is so huge right now, not just in New Orleans, not just in surrounding areas, but the country and really the world.
Right.
Tell people what they can do to overcome this, because it's tremendously epidemic right now.
One thing about the disease of addiction, right? We have a compulsion and an obsession to use. They say heroin and opiates is the best high that you can possibly have.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people want to feel that. Well, heroin in our community has been bad all my life, and now since it's so broad spread, that first thing we got to do is we got to show people that you're worthy and you have value and you have purpose. Because most people who have any trauma situations from parents or siblings or the environment, it's like, well, I don't feel it. I'm gonna get loaded. Everything that happened, I'm gonna get high. I'm going to get 2 bags, and we run the risk of going to jail, getting shot. All those things, all those potential threats are always there when we in active addiction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like the people that's using opiates, first, we got to get them off the drugs in a safe place where they could be away from it, and then we got to infuse unconditional love first, and then we could do the medical treatment on individuals that's using heroin and opiates, and that'll be a way to foundate them to see that they have some value and some worth.
Well, you're a walking testimony and certainly an inspiration to all of us, man.
Yeah.
I listen, where you've come from and where you are now, you were at the mountaintop, then you went down to the valley, and now you're back again.
Yeah,
so
I want to help. I just got my 501c3. The name of my company is Positive Solutions and Social Services Incorporated. I had some brochures and I forgot. I was rushing because I didn't
tell
want to be
people
too
how to
late.
go to the website or something like that.
We don't have the website
Okay.
yet, but what you can do, my cell number is 504-402-6958.
402-6958.
Yes, sir.
402-6958. There is his card.
That's the card.
Adult diversion. This is Todd Juluke's story, and I'm glad I got to. You worked with the district attorney. That is amazing.
That is amazing.
Leon Canizero. By the way, I can't let you go. You got a nice shirt from Task Performance.
Yes.
Bamboo cotton material.
Yes.
Where do you feel that? How
Yes.
soft is that?
Yes, it's very soft.
I mean, what do you see
Like
that
a
on your
baby
body?
bottom.
And then you have a gift certificate. Go check out Shays Delachey's. It's right there uptown on Maple Street. And, hey, you were a hooper. You're going to sign this basketball with the likes of Carl, the mailman Malone.
Yes.
The
mailman.
Alvin Gentry. It goes on and on.
Alvin Gentry,
Find you a
coach.
little spot. We got a bunch of guys. We got a bunch of LSU. Rudy Macklin just signed
Rudy
that ball.
Mack.
One of the
Man,
best players in LSU
how's
history.
Rudy doing?
Fantastic. Rudy is great. He's the all-time LSU rebounder still, second leading scorer of all time. But Todd Juluke, fantastic. Got to thank Sharief, Ishaq, and, of course, Zach Line, the fullback. Next week, it's going to be even bigger. Can you believe that? Because we have LSU basketball head coach Will Wade. We have the 1962 Heisman Trophy runner-up. That's right, Jerry Stovall, who also coached at LSU. And we're going to have Rod Teamer, a Tulane defensive back right here from New Orleans. He's NOLA built New Orleans, Brother Martin High School, and Tulane. So thank you, and we'll be back next week right here on Primetime Sports.